Hey, what's up, y'all? I'm back with another video talking about the Drake UMG case. I want to talk about some of the things that I've been seeing floating around on the internet and responding to a few of the arguments that I'm seeing made. And at the end of the video, I want to talk about how this lawsuit actually ties into this gambling addiction behavior that seems to be an issue for Drake, and just how that all goes together. So stick around for the end if you want to hear that kind of off legal analysis, but it surprisingly it does tie into a lot of law theory. But anyway, so to start off, I just want to talk about one thing that I've seen in the comment sections on a couple of YouTube videos is apparently there's another attorney that's been talking about the unclean hands doctrine. And I haven't seen the YouTube video where that attorney talks about it. And when I saw that, I thought that is a compelling argument. Basically, that the reason they're saying that Drake is not suing Kendrick Lamar is because Kendrick Lamar can then come back and make the defense that Drake also said defamatory things about him, and and that he egged him on as a part of the rap beef, and that he said things that instigated Kendrick Lamar to say the things that he said. And I think that's a valid argument that they made, and I wish I would have thought of that in my last video. But at the same time, when I think about it, it's not off of the table just because he's only suing UMG. UMG can and possibly will make that same defense. They can, and they have in the statement that they released, the press release that they came out with. They mentioned about Drake engaging in rap battles and using artistic expression to also say bad things about his opponents. So that's a point that they've already made, which this just goes back to my original point in my first video that I was making, in that I think that the reason he didn't bring the case against Kendrick Lamar has less to do with the unclean hands doctrine and more just with the fact that by suing UMG, he's suing an entity that has a lot to lose by dragging Drake's name through the mud. So they're forced to possibly, if they have to argue that there's truth to the statements that Kendrick Lamar made, then they're going to be devaluing something that they own. They own Drake's music and they sell it and they make money off of it. So they don't want to devalue it. And in fact, I'm going to get to the reason why I don't think this case is serious and intended to go forward. But if it were to go forward, my theory is that UMG will do everything they possibly can to not further damage Drake's image in the process. They'll make legal claims. They'll argue that it's free speech, that Kendrick Lamar's music is free speech, and disseminating it is free speech, and that it's artistic expression, and it's not necessarily meant to be taken literally, and that Drake is a public figure. So that's their three main defenses, where they don't have to tarnish Drake's image further. And the public figure argument is that when someone is a public figure, you have to have acted with actual malice. And they'll say, we didn't act with malice. We weren't intending to hurt Drake. We were just promoting another artist's music that was engaged in a rap battle with Drake. And I think on those 3 points, free speech, artistic expression, which goes with free speech, and the public figure argument, I think they'll win the case there, and they won't have to harm Drake's reputation. And I think that's the bet. And we're going to get to gambling talk later. I think that's the bet that Drake is making, is that they won't do that. They won't tarnish his image because he knows that he's a commodity to them and that they make money off of them. So I feel pretty strongly about that point. I think it makes a lot of sense, and it's very strategic, and it's actually smart on their part. Like I said, it's all a gamble, and we'll see how far it keeps going. But getting to my second point that I want to make is that I don't think this case is serious and meant to go forward. And I'll tell you why. One of the strongest, most compelling argument that I see people making on social media is when they just quote lyric from Taylor Made. Tell him I like young girls, that's a gift from me. He says in the AI Tupac voice. And maybe I don't have the quote exact how I said it, but that's essentially what he says. And that alone is just destroys his case. And when I think about the fact that the case is not serious and meant to go forward, is when I think about the idea of Drake sitting down for depositions with another attorney, or, and I don't know if they're recorded or not, if it'll be somewhere on record that could come out one day, or it going to trial and him having to go up and get called on the witness stand and testify and have an attorney say to him, Mr. Graham, when you rapped, tell him I like young girls, that's a gift from me. What did you mean by that? What is he gonna say? And then even more, there's even the lyric in Drake's The Heart Part 6, where he says, I knew that you were gonna take the Epstein angle, or whatever it is, or Weinstein. I can't remember exactly what the lyric is, but the same thing. When you said I knew that you would take the Epstein angle, what did you mean by that? And how does he answer that? And the best answer is off the table for him in his defense, or he's the plaintiff, but still he'd essentially be defending himself. But that defense of artistic expression for his lyrics is off of the table, because he just filed an 81-page filing quoting Kendrick Lamar's lyrics all through it, where they're trying to come up with interpretations for the lyrics as to why they're defamatory. So he's going to argue that Kendrick Lamar's artistic expression, which UMG then sold through their distribution, is defamatory and should be taken literally. And then he's gonna try to sit in a deposition or on the witness stand and say that his lyrics are an artistic expression. It'll just be laughable. No judge will be able to take this case seriously, and they have to know that. So that's why it's just hard for me to envision a scenario where this case goes forward. I think it's all just PR and just trying to hopefully maybe prevent it from being played at the Super Bowl. Even if that was Kendrick Lamar's original intention, I don't think it was a guarantee he was going to play it at the Super Bowl. In fact, I think it's actually far more likely at this point that he will than before. So for those reasons alone, I don't see this case going to trial. I don't think that was ever its original intention. I think it was just PR, try to clean his name up, try to prevent the song from possibly being played at the Super Bowl, and also to try and distract. The initial lawsuit was to distract from the release of GNX, to take some of the shine off of Kendrick Lamar, and then also to throw in the bots allegation to just make it seem like Kendrick Lamar's success was artificial and not real. I think that's all it was. It was just all PR, even though he now filed in federal court. It's just hard to imagine him entering depositions and going to trial based on these facts. It's laughable. Okay, and all this brings me to my final point, which is how this lawsuit ties into this larger issue surrounding Drake's gambling addiction and his degenerate behavior, because lawsuits are gambles. Okay. In fact, I wrote my law school dissertation about law and economics and behavioral psychology, which essentially is at its core talking about how courtrooms are used to settle disputes regarding economics. And there's actually a really famous behavioral Nobel winning prize behavioral psychologist, Daniel Kahneman. He wrote this book, Thinking Fast and Slow, which is the book that inspired my law school dissertation. I haven't read it in a long time, so I can't talk too much about the dense intellectual theory that's in that book, but the short part that's relevant for this discussion right here is regarding risk aversion and risk taking, and risk taking, and basically about how, the different structures and law settlements and things that kind of lead to settlements, and how people that are loss averse are more likely to take settlements, and people that are risk taking are more likely to go to trial. So not only does their behavioral affect that, but also the constructs of whatever is going on in a particular case. So they have to weigh on their chances of success in the case or not. But at its core, the relevant piece of information here, and it's intuitive, so it's not like going to be new when I mention this, but it relates to Drake's behavior, is people that have less to lose and more to gain, even if the chances of that gain are small, but they don't have a lot to lose, are more likely to move forward and risk it. It's like paying $1 for a lottery ticket. You can win a whole lot, but you only have to pay $1. So Drake's risk-taking behavior, he's already a risk taker. He already has a gambling addiction. We know that about him. So that's one reason that it's not completely surprising that this whole lawsuit stuff has gone this far. But also, a key point that we're here right now is that it really is a sign that Drake is losing, that he knows he's losing. As time goes on, he keeps on taking losses and taking more hits. So as he sees his spotlight start to dwindle, as he sees his influence start to dwindle, which I think he's definitely seen. He's seen his reputation taking hits. All of this factors in to this idea that he's gonna keep on pushing forward with more risky and kind of degenerate type behavior. I've seen people compare him to Denzel Washington in Training Day, wanting to take everybody down with him at the end, and I think that's an apt analogy for where he's at right now. And I think it's troubling. I can't help but do a little psychoanalysis on him, but I have my own experience with dealing with like addiction and recovery, and so I know a little bit about those things. Not a whole lot about gambling addiction, but I know it ties in to all the other addictions. For me to get my law license, because I had gotten in trouble for drinking and drugs when I was a young man. 12 years later, when I was applying for my law license, they said I had to rehabilitate my character for those mistakes, and I had to go to AA, and it was really a learning experience where I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about substance abuse, and the character defects that lead to that lifestyle. And so when I see Drake with a drink in his hand every time we see him now, and just the way that he's acting and the lack of accountability, it's really kind of sad. And I know people love to call him a narcissist right now, and maybe he is a narcissist. He definitely has shown narcissistic behavior, but I do think he's potentially redeemable, because almost all addicts behave like narcissists, but often it's because they're in the grips of their addiction. So it is possible. Sometimes narcissists become addicts and they're just narcissists at their core, and that's who they are. But I think sometimes people turn to addictions because of whatever traumas that they have, and just it becomes this snowball effect. I'm lacking the word for it, but just where the addiction feeds the narcissism, and you can't really separate the two. But if somebody is able to get clean, get right with God and their family and whatever it is that they're battling, become honest, which I think is a big issue with him and a lot of addicts, is they just lie. They just can't help it. It's just a lifestyle at that point, and they're lying to themselves as much as other people at that point. So I don't want to say he's irredeemable, because I think he needs to have that come to Jesus moment, where he potentially is able to rid himself of all these poisonous things in his life. If he ever does that, a lot of people never do. So maybe we'll never know. Um, but I think even Kendrick, from his perspective, he sees him as redeemable, and he tried to talk to him that way. And a lot of his songs and the things that he was saying to him with the warnings. So anyway, I've gone on longer than I necessarily wanted to go on that subject, but I hope you take away something from this video. Appreciate you for watching. I don't know if I'm trying to monetize this channel or not anyway, so I mean, you can subscribe, whatever. But this is just practice for me. Thanks for watching. Appreciate you.